Hey there. Every week I post 4 problems for students and parents and teachers to practice using tape diagrams to visually represent their understanding of the word problems at their level. So tape diagrams allow students to develop a deep conceptual understanding of the word problems rather than just to grab the numbers and do some sort of random arithmetic in hopes of getting the right answer. So each week, not only do I post those problems, I also make a video showing how I modeled the problems with tape diagrams. In the video description, you're gonna see some included links so that you can skip straight ahead to each of the problems that you might be interested in. And you'll also get a link to the problems themselves. So, let's just get started on this. And we're gonna start with, of course, the early elementary. So Sarah has 18 centimeters of ribbon. She cuts it into 2 unequal pieces. The first piece is 15 centimeters long. How much longer is the second piece than the first piece than the second piece? So there's a lot going on. But what I hear is that this is actually a 2-tape diagram problem. So because it says she cuts it into 2 unequal pieces. So I'm going to call this first piece, and then I'm going to call this the second piece. And it says that one is 15 centimeters long. All right, so that's this guy right here. And we don't know what this one is, but we know altogether it's 18 centimeters. All right, well, doing a little bit of subtraction, we can see that 18 take away 15 is 3. So now we know that this length right here is 3. And then it says, how much longer is the first piece than the second piece? So really, we're trying to find this length right here. So we know that this first one is 15. We know that this second one is 3. So we're going to do a little bit of subtraction, and we're going to get 15 take away 3 gives us 12. So we now know that that first ribbon is 12 centimeters longer than the second piece of ribbon, and that's that one. That was a beautiful problem. Okay, so then for the upper elementary, Dylan and Nate, they have $90 in total. They each pay $9 towards a meal. Dylan now has 5 times as much money as Nate. How much did Dylan have at the start? So Dylan and Nate. So we've got 2 characters in our story, don't we? So we've got, let's see, Dylan and we have Nate. All right. And then it says they have $90 total. They each pay $9 towards a meal. Dylan now has 5 times. So here's the kicker. Dylan now has 5 times as much as Nate. So that means if Nate has 1 unit right here, all right, there's my 1 unit for Nate. That means Dylan is going to have 5 of those. So 1, 2, there we go. 3, 4, and then 1 more is 5. All right, so let's clean this up a little bit. Well, bam. So that's the after. So before, they each paid $9. So that means what we're looking at is less than the $9 they each spent. So here is the $9 they each spent. And all of this is equal to $90. So all of this is equal to $90. So that means we need to figure out, well, what's the value of just these 6 units right here? Well, if we do 90, take away 18, that gives us 72. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 units is equal to 72. So 1 unit has to equal 12. So each of these is a 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, and 12. And then the question is, how much did Dylan have at the start? So his big question mark is right there. So how much did Dylan have at the start? Well, he had 5 units plus $9. All right, that's how much he had at the start. 5 units plus $9. Each of those units is 12. So 5 times 12 is 60 plus 9 gives us $69. So Dylan had $69 at the start. All right, so we're going to move on to middle school. So Melanie has 254 pears and oranges. She sells 3/10 of her pears and 67 of her oranges. She now has the same amount of oranges and pears left. All right, how many pears did she have at the start? So again, I'm going to be thinking, is this a 1 tape or a 2 tape diagram? And to me, this is just calling out for 2 tapes. And the 2 tapes is pears and oranges, not Melanie. Pears and oranges. And then it says she had 254 pears and oranges. She sells 3/10 of her pears and 67 of her oranges. She now has the same amount of oranges and pears. Okay, so I'm going to draw, to me this is kind of also a before and after. So I know that like the start is she has some pears, she has some oranges. All together this is supposed to equal 254. That she's going to sell some of her pears, 1, 2, 3 tenths of her pears, and she's going to sell 67 of her oranges, and now they are supposed to be equal. Right there, boom. They are now equal. So how many pears did she have at the start? So here's my thinking. Okay, so there's a tenth, there's a tenth, there's a tenth, right up here. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10. So what do we have in this piece? It's not going to be perfect, but that's 7/10 right there. So I'm just going to draw in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tenths plus these tenths, which are not accurate. They're not proportional, but that's okay. And then I also know that this piece right here is 67. And now she has equal amounts of pears and oranges. So really, if you want to think about it, this is worth 7 units, just like the pears are. All right. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to pretend, and I'm going to just cut it into 7 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we have these extra 3. So we have 7 plus 7 plus 3. So that's 17 units. All right. So right here represents 17 units. Now, what do those 17 units represent? Well, they don't represent 254. So, because really they represent the 254 minus the 67. So I'm going to do over here on scratch paper, I'm going to do 254, take away the 67, and I get 187. So those 17 units is equal to 187 pieces of fruit. All right, so now I need to do some math, and I need to figure out the value of just 1 unit, and I could see that 187 divided by 17 is equal to 11. So each of those little units is equal to 11 pieces of fruit. So this is 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, etc., right? So all of these are 11, lots of 11s. How many 11s are we going to have? We're going to have 17 11s. That's how we got 187. But the question is asking, how many pears did she have at the start? Well, that's all we have to do is look at this top row right here, that top tape, And our answer is going to live right here. Boom. It's how many did she have at the start? So she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 units. Each unit represents 11. So 10 units at 11 each, 11 pieces of fruit each. So that's 110 pears that she had at the start. Wow, fantastic. All right, now we're going to go to the challenge. So Emily and Duane have gumdrops. Emily has 16 more gumdrops than Duane. Emily eats 3/4 of hers. Duane eats 2/3 of his. They now have 60 gumdrops left all together. How many gumdrops did Duane have at the start? Wow, there's a lot of information going on. And so let's keep track of all of this with a tape diagram. All right, so feels like we have Emily and Duane as our two characters. Now it says Emily has 16 more gumdrops than Duane. So that means I'm going to draw a picture of Duane's gumdrops right here. And then I'm going to make a copy of that and say, well, there's Emily's, but not quite, because Emily has 16 more. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to give her an extra dose of 16 gumdrops. All right, there's our extra dose of 16 gumdrops for Emily. And then it says Emily eats 3/4 of her gumdrops. Duane eats 2/3 of his gumdrops. They now have 60 all together. All right, it doesn't say they have like they're equal or anything. So how are we going to model Emily eating 3/4 of her gumdrops? Well, I know if I take this first piece and cut it up into 4, and then I'm going to take this 16 and cut it into 4. That way, if she eats 3/4 of her gumdrops, what is that going to look like? Well, that means she's going to eat one of these plus one of these 4. Now, how do I know it's 4? Because it's 16 divided by 4 units. So I know it's 4 gumdrops. So I know she's going to eat that. That's 1/4. So this big piece and this 4, that equals 1/4. And she needs to eat 3/4. So that's another one and another one. And then that's one last big one and one last small one. So we know that this has 4 little gumdrops left over. We don't know how many gumdrops is this big unit. All right. But then it says Duane, what did Duane do? Duane eats 2/3 of his gumdrops. All right, so Duane eats 2/3 of his gumdrops. So I'm gonna just go cut and cut. And then he eats 2/3 of those gumdrops. Oh, it doesn't matter which thirds I eat, but there you go, right there. All right. Now we have a total of 60 left over. The problem is this unit and this unit are not the same size. So we don't know exactly how many smaller units, how many equivalent units we're going to have. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this idea that these two tapes right here at one point were equal. So this has 4 pieces, this has 3 pieces, so we're going to do the old swap-a-rooney, which means we are going to cut each of these 4 pieces into 3. And then we're going to cut each of these 3 into 4. Now we have equivalent units. And we know that these units right here, boom, right here, are equal to 60. 60 gumdrops, is it? Yeah, 60 gumdrops. So that's 7 units plus those 4 extra is equal to 60. All right, is equal to 60. So that means if we cross off these 4, that means this is really 56. So that means 7 units is really equal to 56 gumdrops. So 1 little unit is equal to 8 gumdrops. And so the question was, how many gumdrops did Duane have at the start? So Duane, at the start, he had 12 little units. Remember, he had thirds, but each third was cut into 4. So 12 units, and each unit was equal to 8. So 12 units at 8 each, that gives us 96 gumdrops. So Duane, at the start, had 96 gumdrops. And that wraps up another week's worth of Tape Diagram Tuesday problems. This one was for September 24th. Make sure you subscribe so that you're always kept up to date when I release new problems and when I release the answers for those problems.